You made something interesting. You said something before. It's like, I got into bodybuilding to make money.
I wanted to do this as a career. Did you have a plan B?
I didn't have a plan B. It's really weird.
That's why you were so successful, because you had no fallback.
You know, it's funny. My mom was always against.
Oh my God.
She's just like, what is this? This is bodybuilding. How are you going to make money doing it? So I always wanted to prove to her I can make money. And I started competing and I started getting prize money. And I just made $50,000, you know. I was making six figures.
You were making more money than
I was making more than Lee. Hey, I had a gym then, by the way, and I was doing, personal training in the gym. I was still pro, but I was selling a lot of supplements, other people's brands. So I just said, you know what?
Let's do my own.
I might as well do my own. And that's what I did. And so what got you started? Like, tell your story.
I never charged for it. I used to coach people for free. They would just come to my house and I would just do their diets. And
really?
Because there was no coaching. There was no online stuff like that. People would literally come to my house all day long, in and out. And I was looking at people and helping them get ready for shows and all the guys in New York. And it just developed into a business. Do what you love to do and you will make money. I promise you. But you got to give it 100%.
Got to give it 100%. Rich Gaspari here, Beyond the Muscle. I have a special guest, Dave Palumbo, owner of Species Nutrition, RX Muscle, former competitive bodybuilder, and welcome to the show.
I'm back again.
You're back again. It's great to have you. I had you on the show, and I said, let's bring you back because we're bringing back some really cool information. We have a lot of things that are similar because we're both these guys who strive to be bodybuilders.
Yeah.
Both of us were guys. I would say underdogs. You came into the sport.
Yeah.
You came in. You wanted to be the best. You figured out the best way to build your body, and you made something interesting. You said something before. It's like, I got into bodybuilding to make money being in bodybuilding.
Well, I wanted to do this as a career. But I wanted to ask you first, before I even tell you my story, did you have a plan B?
It's funny. I got into bodybuilding so young. I mean, I turned pro. You remember? I won the junior nationals like 19.
Right.
I went into the nationals, won it at 20.
Yeah.
And then I turned pro. Back then you had to win the class in the Mr. Universe.
Right, which you went and did.
And then I did, because if you didn't win that, you have to go back to that. So
yeah.
And then try. You didn't get your pro card winning the USAs.
Right.
You didn't get your pro card winning that. Now you get your pro card like it's a Skittle.
Yeah.
They give them away. There's 1,000 pros that someone come up to M Pro. I'm like, I've never heard of you. Unless you're the Mr. Olympia.
I was at the supermarket once and the girl was checking out and she's like, oh, you're Dave Palumbo, right? I said, yeah. She's like, oh, I'm so-and-so. She's like, I'm a pro. I said, you're a pro in what? You were a bikini commander and she was the checkout girl.
She's a checkout girl. That's how bad it is. But you're right. I didn't have a plan B. It's really weird.
But the reason I ask you that is because that's why you were so successful, because you had no fallback. You had to be successful.
Successful.
And that's what drives you today, probably.
It's still because, it's funny. I don't know how you had my parents, not my dad. My dad was very, supportive of what I did. My mom was always against.
Oh, she was?
She's just like, what is this? This is bodybuilding. How are you going to make money doing it? So I always wanted to prove to her I can make money. So it's, and I started competing and I started getting prize money. And I just made $50,000,
Like, oh, there is something.
And then it would be like, I started going to do seminars and, being a pro bodybuilder, I had to travel all over the world and come back with thousands of dollars in cash. And back then was the 80s. I was making six figures.
You were making more money than probably the guys who were with.
Well, it was funny. I was making more than Lee because I was one of those guys that like hustler. I was a hustler and I was out there on the road. But what was my plan B? I was thinking like I was competing and at the end of my career when I got injured, and I didn't even know I was injured, but I had disc problems and I started seeing my body start to. I was losing against guys that I would beat easily.
Right.
I was like, I got to get out of this. I'm not. And then it changed to the Dorian era where everyone was bigger.
Right.
And like I said, I was trying to compete as a much bigger bodybuilder. And I think my days are over. At my last show, I got top 5. And the guys I went against were Ronnie Coleman, first, Flex Wheeler second, Chris Commit third, Milos fourth, and I could fit. So I'm like, okay, so maybe I can beat Milos. I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to beat these other guys. And that's what that was coming up. And I was like, and then I got injured. I always call it a blessing in disguise.
Right.
Because when I got injured, I was laying in bed. I'm like sitting there like I told you I went from like 245, competing down to 185. And I was just in bed because the pain was so bad. I ruptured the disc. My right arm was just throbbing with pain. I didn't go to get surgery, which I should have. Sure, I was just taking anti-inflammatories. Why I lose weight? Because I was taking corticosteroids, like Candy, to break down the inflammation.
Because you thought, I gotta get back to the gym.
Yeah, but it just like, and then my right arm, it actually, because of the, I had damage.
Right.
But I sat there and said, like, what am I going to do? And I was always intrigued by supplements. And I had a gym then, by the way, and I was doing, personal training in the gym. I was still pro, but I was selling a lot of supplements, other people's brands. So I just said, you know what?
Let's do my own.
I might as well do my own. And that's what I did. And it's funny because, people think like just had all this money. I lost a lot of money. I moved back home to my parents. I had a 911 Porsche, sold it. Bought a minivan.
I told him the story. I was doing a guest appearance in Pennsylvania. Rich drives up in this like little van, unpacks this thing, and you set up your booth. You were all alone.
Yep.
And you first was like, what are you?
And I went place to place, had to play. And I said, I'm going to do this just like I compete at.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
But it's very humbling. You got to go back to like start from ground.
And a lot of guys
zero.
do that now because they have the red carpet, with them, and then it's humbling to all of a sudden, people look at, there's Rich Gaspari in a minivan.
Yeah. But you know what? People respect that.
Yeah. I didn't realize it.
You were like the common man's bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's what it was. That being, blue collar, even in business. Yeah. So what got you started? Like, tell your story on, what got you to bodybuilding, and what got you doing what you're doing. You and I are one of the few guys, even though you never turned pro,
right.
You're still well known in the industry. You have RX Muscle, huge following, subscribers. I mean, you're doing amazing, and kudos to you because people should know you don't need to be Mr. Olympia. You don't need to be a top pro. You're making money doing what you're doing.
Right. My goal was always to be able to make a living as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And I thought it meant winning the Olympia or being on the Olympia stage, at least when I first got into it. Now I was in medical school. So I went to college and then I got into medical school and I just started bodybuilding really because I was a runner in college and I started doing some bodybuilding and I saw my body changing and I was very lean. So anything I gained was like, oh, this looks pretty good. People give me compliments, stuff like that. And I'm like, I kind of like this whole idea of like being able to mold your body and everything like that. And, you get bit by the bug. You want to do it. And it got to the point where in the third year of medical school, I'd been bodybuilding the whole time. And I competed a few times. There was no time to go to the gym anymore because they want you on call. I'd be 36 hours straight. I wasn't sleeping. I felt terrible. And I hated the fact that the medical society at the time only treated symptoms. They didn't give a crap about health. I said, I'm going to take a year off. I hadn't taken a year off from school at all. I went right from high school to college to men's school. And I talked to the guidance counselor. She's like, why don't you take the year off? I think you need to find yourself, So I started bodybuilding and I started writing for websites just came out or around that. Or I started writing because people knew I had a ability to write. Cause I was very realistic. Plus write it. And I was changing my body real fast. And people were like, what is this guy doing? And I hadn't even taken steroids yet. Yeah. And once I started taking steroids, I was a hyper responder. I was growing like weed. And, I got into the whole Dorian Yates thing and mentality of training less volume. And I discovered fats around the same time. And people, and what is this guy doing? So when people see that you're changing dramatically, everyone wants to know what you're doing. And I started just giving out, I became an information provider. Bill Phillips was giving information for free. And I said, I'm just giving away information for free. I don't care. I like to share. I'm not a hoarder. I don't hoard knowledge. And
a lot of people back then, they kept that stuff.
Oh, it did. So I was talking about cycles with guys in the gym, and I was explaining how the steroids worked. No one knew this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was explaining estrogen blockers and this and that. And people were like, this guy explains things so easily. My father warned me. He said, he was an English teacher for 35 years. He's like, whatever you do, just don't become a teacher. Yeah. But it was in my blood. So I became a teacher. I became a teacher, but I didn't do it in a conventional sense.
Yeah.
So I just started making money. And I said, I'm not going back to medical school. I hated it. I at the point that I got to, I didn't want to do it. I said, you know what? I felt like I extracted enough knowledge from the school to take whatever I want and go to the next level. And I figured, all right, I'm winning the junior nationals. Then I go and I'm placing in nationals first time. I'm like, I'm going to become a pro and I'm the biggest guy here. I'm lean and ripped. And you know, I didn't know what my structural limitations were, but I thought I can go all the way. And then I would make money. And Connelly gave me a contract with Metrex when I was an amateur. So I'm making like $150,000 a year, you know, with writing and guest posing and Metrex. And I'm not even a pro.
Yeah.
And I'm like kind of like what you were doing. Yeah. I was like the underdog, but I had that added ability to do seminars and travel finally. And so I said, you know what? It hadn't hit me yet, but I kind of said, I'm doing what I wanted to do. Make money at bodybuilding.
Yeah, you're doing it.
I'm making a good living, and I can sleep as late as I want.
Yeah.
I stay up to 4 a.m. I'll answer emails all day. When emails started, answering questions. People are hiring me to do things. I'm like, this is the life. I could tan, and when I would wake up in the morning, I had to decide, should I tan first or go to the gym first? You know, it was like this was the life I wanted to live, and I was doing it on my terms, and so. And then business has just started to develop. I started to sell other people's supplements that I believed in. You know, I was selling other guys protein out of my trunk from my heart. The people wanted to do whatever Dave's doing, I want to do.
Yeah.
And so I said, that's power. And I always kept giving away free information. I never charged for it. I just kept giving away. I used to coach people for free. They would just come to my house and I would just do their diets. And because there was no coaching, there was no online stuff like that. People would literally come to my house all day long, in and out. And I was looking at people and helping them get ready for shows and all the guys in New York. And it just developed into a business.
So then how did you get into where you got to the point where I guess you're working for Steve Blackman?
Blackman hired me because he decided to turn muscular development into a hardcore magazine again. I wrote a column called The Anabolic Freak. That put me on the map because I was talking about anabolic steroids and like in a very learned way, but I have a very good way of explaining complex ideas in very simplistic terms. People loved it. It was like a Q&A column, and that really put me on the map. And then
is that in the magazine or was that online?
It was in the magazine because we didn't have it online. Then at some point when I stopped competing, because my shoulders just got too bad, and I knew I couldn't be better than I was before.
Yeah.
He offered me a full-time job starting the website because I had been doing my own website and then putting pictures up at all the shows. And once I started that started social media. That was the introduction of the first contest coverage, immediate results
right away.
Because before that, you had to wait 3 months until the magazines came out. And so I created my own niche. And I think to answer your question, even though it's a long answer, is find a niche for yourself that you like and that you're good at and that no one else is in, and exploit that, and you'll be very happy because you can make a living for the rest of your life doing that. And I'm still doing it.
Yes.
20 years, 20
Look
years.
at me. I had competed since.
I had a plan D. I could have gone back to medical school.
Yeah, you had. Yeah.
And if my mother had never passed away when I was 14 years old, I probably would have finished medical because she would have made me. So the fact that she passed away, it gave me this cavalier, maybe I might be dead. I might as well do what I love.
Do what you love.
And I just never look back. And it's hard for people to do that because it's very risky. You did it. You had no plan B.
No.
If you failed as a bodybuilder, you were going to be digging niches.
That's what I went through. I was going to either, my dad was a mason. I did work with my dad as a mason.
Yeah, you had that, but that was not appealing.
No, I didn't want to work as a mason. My dad, I give him, I really respect him because it was hard work. I come home, on some and he put in my head, you got to work hard.
Right.
And I said, I'm working hard, but I'm working differently. I'm not going to work in a dish. That's
Ray Cutler.
Yes.
Digging ditches. When he was a teenager.
He comes from construction.
Yeah. They were like, he'd have a choice. He's like, I don't want to keep doing this. And his father's like, you don't have a choice. You're getting that ditch.
Yeah. That's what, or my dad had two ways. He goes, either you go to college, right? And it was always like him. It was being an engineer.
Okay.
Because my other brother's in it.
I was okay. They could build
you an engineer so you could build buildings. Because everything was about construction. My dad.
Well, he obviously was passionate.
Yeah. So it's either be an engineer, or be a carpenter.
Right.
Mason, whatever. Yeah. But I said, Dad, I'm going to be a bodybuilder. He's like, what the hell is that?
He probably figured, if you failed, you'll just come back and work
out. Yeah. What happened is you saw I kept doing it. And then he actually admired it because he saw, what's cool is he got to see me compete as a pro, making money. Right. He got to see me when I started my supplement business out of his basement. Right. He saw me, I don't know. I always tell the story that, I was selling creatine back in the day, and I was trying to get it cheaper because I was going door to door to all the stores. Okay. So I was trying to buy it from another manufacturer, but the pricing, I couldn't get it cheaper than, a certain amount that I would get so I could beat out the price of what's thrown out there. So what I did is I bought a barrel of creatine, micronized creatine.
Right.
I bought the bottles. I made
Did it yourself?
Well, I started doing it. I said, and I had an order for like 3,000 bottles. So what I did is I went through the neighborhood and I got a bunch of kids. And they're they're all playing basketball. I say, hey, I want to pay you. Yeah. Come to my house. And all of what you do is you're going to take this white substance, measure, put it in a bottle. The next kid's going to crumble it. Yeah. The next kid is going to put the shrink wrap on it, the seal. And the next kid's going to put it in the box. So I had this assembly line in my basement, my dad's basement. So my dad comes down and he sees this pile of white powder.
Oh my God.
Yeah. He goes, what the hell are you doing? The guy was creatine. What are these kids? Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just paying these kids. They're my workforce. And that's how I started by selling it.
I love that story. I didn't know that story. That's a good story.
That's what I did. And I just, like you said, I hustled and figured out I'm going to make it work. I got no choice. Because then even when I stopped bodybuilding, my dad's like, what are you going to do? Yeah. Right, you're going to make money. You're injured. Yeah. You're going to be, you wanted me to be a cop. And I was like, I'm not a cop guy. Right. I don't want to be a cop.
You did your own business. I always tell people desperation is a very good motivation. That's why I worry about like my kids. I'm sure you think the same thing. Yeah. So they don't have that desperation.
You're going to push you out.
Yeah. I'm hoping that they're self-motivated themselves.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think we live in our era, that we are self-motivated. Yeah. And when you are desperate, you're not going to, sit.
That's what makes social media so great, because you know what? You don't have to beg for contracts anymore. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, how am I going to make money in bodybuilding? It's all on you.
Yeah.
You have free advertising on your social media.
Exactly.
You've got a YouTube channel that you can monetize and make money. Bodybuilders can make their own money today, and they don't have to depend on anyone.
It's just being consistent. I'm going to give an example. Like, I'm really impressed with what you have with RX Muscle. And you have, how many podcasts do you have? How many shows do you have? You have RX Muscle.
We have the Heavy Muscle Radio Show, which is now Heavy Muscle TV. Yeah, essentially. We have the After Hours podcast, which is with the Back. Ask Dave. We do Iron Debate. Sometimes I have the Palumbo podcast with Romano once in a while. We do that. And then I'm always doing rants and lifestyle stuff. So we put up content every Sunday.
And they're all different shows.
All different shows.
So there's different. Is it different subscribers, or they're all?
It's all in one channel, which probably hurts me. But if I don't do diversity, if I did the same, like if I just made fun of people all day long, every single video, I'd probably have 1 million subscribers. Yeah. I'd make more money, but I would want to blow.
But you have hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
Yeah, over 300,000. But I'm saying I could probably be more successful if I followed a formula that YouTube embraces. I do what I love to do. I don't care what anyone else thinks. Yeah. I have my own strategy. I make the supplements that I want to make. And you know what I tell people? If you're happy and you like what you do, you're going to consistently do it. If I have to be pigeonholed into a certain way of looking, if this business guy says, Dick, focus on this, don't do any of this, I'm bored. I don't want to. I'll stop doing it. Yeah. So I got to do what I like to do. And that's why I tell people, do what you love to do and you will make money. I promise you. But you got to give it 100%.
You got to give it 100%. And people don't understand what it takes to give 100%. I've had ups and downs in my business. I'm still standing, but I've had points where people say, like, just quit.
Well, people told you that when you were bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And you said, no.
I'm not quitting. Yeah. But it's do what you love to do. The best message that Dave could say is do what you love to do. And that's what it is. It's not really considered work. You really consider this work.
Bob Grushkin was one of the biggest gurus in bodybuilding. May he rest in peace. Yeah. I went to his house. I just left medical school. And I said, Doug Wentz, my good friend, took me there. And I said, I wanted him to assess my potential in the future. And I posed for him. And I said, what do you think, Bob? He goes, you think I could win my Fast International level show? Which was important back then. He's like, maybe you should go back to medical school.
Really?
He's like, but prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove me wrong.
And I actually proved him wrong. And he came up to me 5 years later. I had won the Junior Nationals. And he said, you're the only person who's ever proved me wrong.
Really?
Yeah. So
your passion.
Because I'm like you. I don't quit. But if you don't give up, don't let anyone tell you can't do something, because you can achieve whatever you really want if you put.
That's what I Dave's success is all because he never gave up, was passionate what he did, loves what he does. Same thing. We have, commonalities where I love what I do.
Well, that's why we get along, because we think the same way.
Yeah. And I enjoy, I got to know you later on, but I said, we become good friends, and, by the way, this guy's into snakes. Yeah. It's a little different. And my son wanted a snake, and I just got this pygmy boa, and now trying to figure out, I got to call him up. Things not eating. What do I do? But it's
You'll be a snake expert.
yeah, it'll be a snake expert. But do what you love to do, and that's this message on this show. Okay.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Hey, thanks for being on the show, Dave.